Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.
A family of 6 was murdered in Allen, Texas, when the 19-year-old son decided to murder the entire family before taking his own life. Now, in this incident which took place in Allen, Texas, 19-year-old Farhan Townhead and his twin brother carried out the execution and murder of the entire family, including the parents and a grandmother, in this home in Allen, Texas. Now, most people are looking at this as an isolated incident of murder, suicide, but when I take a critical examination of Farhan Townhead's behavior, it fits the pattern and profile I talk about regarding beta males in my book, The Man Crisis. And it's clear to me that your Farhan Townhead was clearly a man in crisis, and he had possibly been a boy in crisis for years, because he posted on his social media that he had been dealing with depression ever since the ninth grade, and he had not found a way to resolve these issues that were causing him to have depression for the last 5 years. And because he had not found a way to resolve the issues as to dealing with his numerous depression issues, he made a proposition to his brother that if he could not fix everything in a year, they would kill themselves and kill the family. This was the plan that he had detailed in a suicide note, and he had detailed how he was going to again participate in these murders. And he wrote at the end of the suicide note, "If I killed myself, they would be miserable. I love my family, I genuinely do, and that's why I decided to kill them." Again, showing us that this male was struggling with serious mental health issues because he was not in a place where he had any sort of hope, and because he did not know how to change anything in his life. This is what led to him wanting to destroy the lives of not only himself, but destroy the lives of his family. And I believe this family probably did not know how to deal with this boy's depression and get him the help that he needed. And that's why this male was in crisis for so many years, and his situation wound up further deteriorating over the course of 5 years. Because usually in homes like this male came from, which was I believe it was a Bangladeshi home, in those homes, they usually have a different culture, and in that culture, they really don't know how to deal with issues as related to mental health. And because they don't know how to deal with issues with mental health, they really just put these kind of kids on the back burner, not really thinking much about the issues that he's dealing with, and thinking that there was nothing they could do. They just leave them alone. And then what happens is these kids, again, because they are sitting there and they are struggling with these mental health issues, they wind up exploding and winding up doing harm to others and themselves. And sadly, that's what this man in crisis wound up doing, because he could not get any sort of intervention to deal with his mental health issues. What happened was he wound up implementing this plan he had to take the lives of his family and then take his own life, because he was miserable about the state of his life. He saw no way that he could change the state of his life, and that's why he wanted to go out here and destroy his life and the lives around him, because he could not figure out a way to overcome this depression. And this is why it's very important for people to understand the gravity of the man crisis, because if you know about a man in crisis and you know what they're dealing with, then you could possibly save his life and the lives of all of those around him. Because oftentimes, all it takes is a simple intervention to help a man in crisis like this and turn them around and let them know that everything isn't as hopeless as they think it is. But most people, they just think, oh, this guy's just down, he's just unhappy. But the whole thing is, people like this do need help. And if we can get them help before they wind up self-destructing, again, it can save not only their lives, but it can save the lives of others. And this is a really, again, troubling incident, because it's showing me how much worse the man crisis is getting in this country. And I believe that the lockdowns from the pandemic have led to a lot of these situations continuing to, again, mushroom as I see it, because I'm starting to see this rise in violence as people come out of these lockdowns and society tries to get back to normal. And what we're seeing as a result is this man crisis getting worse as more and more men are practically self-destructing practically every day. I mean, last week we had a pair of mass shootings, and this week we had an incident where a man murdered. This is like the third or fourth incident this year where a man has murdered his family. And many of these men, again, they were already on the brink of before the pandemic, and as the pandemic has gone on, many of these men who were struggling and having a hard time in life, a lot of them are losing hope. A lot of them are not seeing any light at the end of the tunnel. And because they're not seeing any sort of hope or light at the end of the tunnel, they are going out here and harming themselves and their families. And this, again, is a disturbing trend as related to this whole man crisis. And it just shows, again, how much worse things are getting here in America as related to the man crisis. And what's really sad is we have people in the media who just see these as isolated incidents, and because they're not connecting the dots, they're not seeing the bigger picture as related to America's man crisis. And if we really want to help people, we've got to start seeing that there's a bigger picture to this man crisis in this country, and we have to start looking for ways to help many of these men out here before they wind up doing harm to others or do it to themselves. But the only way we can do that is by acknowledging this man crisis that's going on in this country right now. And this man crisis is, as I see it, starting to explode in this country. And we really, in America, need to acknowledge how bad this man crisis is, because we have 2 to 3 generations of these ticking time bombs out here, and the clock, as I see it, has been accelerated on them as related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And because of the pandemic accelerating the clock, we're seeing more and more men exploding in rage and participating in what is looking like becoming more and more extreme acts of violence, such as mass shootings and now the mass slaughters of family by family members. And again, it's getting worse because America does not want to acknowledge this man crisis that's going on in this country and why so many men are falling apart. And the reason why many of these men are falling apart is because so many men are falling through the cracks, like this 19-year-old young man who had everything to live for in this world, but because he had no hope ever since he was 14 years old, he wound up taking the lives of his family and wound up taking his own life because he couldn't see a light at the end of the tunnel, and he couldn't see a way to living a more abundant life like Jesus promised us all. Now, if you want to learn why so many men like this are suffering and why so many men like this are struggling over in this world, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format, Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. And this book has helped so many men save their lives and transform their lives. And I'm hoping that by reading this book, it'll help a man out here who is in crisis before he goes out here and does harm to others or himself, and help him understand that he is not alone, that he is not have to be lost, and that he can find another way to be able to have a better life in this world and overcome this crisis that's going on all across the country. And if you want to see me make more men's issues videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available for the first time in paperback, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single. Learn all the reasons why so many Black women can't find a husband and why 70% of Black women are single. Get your copy of Why 70% of Black Women Are Single on Amazon.com today.